Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about plugging in words into the blanks for sentence completions. If you had watched some of the earlier videos that myself have been published for sentence completions, you know to look up for keywords and flow words as well as punctuation, because again, that will help you to determine what you want to put in the blank. So now it's time to actually fill in the blanks. And we're going to fill in the blanks with your own words. Now, how do we do this? I highly recommend that the first thing you do is you cover up the choices. Always begin by covering up the answer choices to avoid the temptation of sneaking a peek at the answers. This is important because if you do look at the choices before you read the sentence, or after you read the sentence and you look at the choice right away, then try to think of your own word, the word you put won't be quite as genuine, and actual answer might be somewhat tainted by what you see in the choices. So it's probably better to think of your own words so that when you remove your hand and look at the words and you actually see a word that's exactly what you're looking for or close to what you're looking for, that actually gives you a lot of confidence in your answer, and confidence boosting is very helpful, especially in the beginning of the reading section, since sentence completions are at the beginning of any SAT reading section. The next thing, don't feel compelled to think of your own words. If possible, use words that are already provided in the sentence completion. If you had watched some of the earlier videos, you can see this is page 2.7 from my SAT curriculum, and this is page 2.8. Let's actually look at page 2.6. And if you look at this one here, guests at the party found the general merriment infectious and wondered by the party's happy nature. We could have used the word merriment, you know. So you can use words that are already appear earlier on in the sentence to help you fill in the blank. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Or here is how I use harmful. I just simply use the opposite of harmless. So use words in the sentence to act as a clue as what you're going to put in the blank. Also, no need to think of one exact word for each blank. I remember doing test prep a long time ago, and I had an instructor that always would force me to think of one word, and that was hard because my vocab was very weak. And I hate to really impose it on my students because I didn't like it. So if I don't like it, why should I do it to anyone else who's trying to do test prep? So what I think is a good idea is to think of a phrase or idea. If you can't think of one word. If you can think of one word, great, but if you can't, not a big deal. Sometimes a phrase or an idea to fill in the blank will suffice. Because then when you look at the choices, you might see a word that has a definition that is similar meaning to this phrase or idea you have, and therefore you have a match for the correct answer. Some other things that we want to keep in mind before we do these 6 examples below, because we're going to actually plug in words into each of the choices or each of the questions below. So definitely you want to circle keywords, flow words, and punctuation, like we talked about in one of the previous videos. Of course, we're going to try to find your own words to fill in the blank. You can use words that are already in the sentence. And you can't think of an exact word. Sometimes think about a positive or negative word could help. So putting plus or minus signs might not be such a bad idea. And also, again, consider using a phrase or idea to fill in the blank. So let's now try some of these problems here. So you see the word although. So clearly there's a contrasting word or a negative flow word. And we see the comma. So although Miss Harvey's disposition was generally blank, she could become enraged when sufficiently blank. Okay. So in this case, we see the word although. You could say although she's generally calm, because that's the opposite of enraged. Because enraged is angry. She could become enraged when sufficiently provoked. So those are some examples of words you can use. But notice again how we're trying to pick our own word. That's a skill that we want to develop. So let's try number 2. Records document the presence of Africans among the crews of explorers like Christopher Columbus, blank the antiquity of the African presence in the Americas. So these records document the presence. Antiquity, that's a key word, almost means like history, because it sounds like antique or old, or heritage. So the records that document the presence of Africans probably help prove the antiquity. Or you can use the word document the antiquity. That could work also. Or verify, corroborate. There's definitely a lot of ways you can go about this. Let's look at number 3. Some of the reasons ranches belong to blank landowners, they live elsewhere and visit the ranch only rarely. So you see a comma, but we don't see a negative flow word, so we're expecting a cause and effect situation here. So in this case, we want a word because they live elsewhere and visit rarely. You want a word that represents someone who is not there often. So if you can't think of an adjective to put before the word landowners, that's okay. If you can't think of one exact word, but you have a general idea of what you're looking for, write it down and then look at the choices. If you can't think of a word, hopefully you thought of the word absentee. Absentee would be a great word to put in that choice, or sorry, to put in that blank, because being absentee means not being there. Like, maybe you're in school and you know what it means to be absent, means you're not there. Or some people who may have parents who don't want to go to the polling station to vote in an election might say they're filling an absentee ballot, meaning that they're making their vote but not going to be present during the actual election or at a polling station during the actual election. So, that's a word that can work. But if you think of a general idea, that's fine too. And then if you look at the choices and you see a word like absentee, then you should figure that you have a match. Let's look at number 4. Because Ruth's parents often blank their plans as soon as they're formed, choose some all adults words blank as their parents. Now in this case, we have something that's called a codependent. Double blank. Because here's the thing, both of these blanks actually rely on each other. So if someone told me what was in the first blank, then I'm golden. I totally know what goes in the second blank and vice versa. We do see the word because, so we do expect 100% agreement between the two sentences, or sorry, the two parts of the sentence. And we also see the comma right there. So we could say often confirm their plans. So like maybe they would book something, then they would call the hotel to make sure it's in the system. So some adults were responsible as their parents. So notice how in this case I'm going positive, positive. Or we could do negative, negative. Maybe parents are very flaky. You could say cancel their plans as soon as they're formed. So they say they book something online, then they just change their mind, cancel it. Then assume all adults were as fickle. Fickle means you change your mind often. That's actually a commonly used SAT word. That's also kind of tough to remember sometimes if your vocab's a bit weak. So yeah, so just those some things to keep in mind. And usually when you approach these kind of sentence completions, it might be better to actually plug in each pair of words to see what makes sense of the context. And we'll talk about when we get to the double blank video whenever you do have a chance to watch that one. And then let's look at number 5. Now, these sentence completions I intentionally made more challenging because see there's a challenging word there. And that's usually how sentence completions are supposed to work. They do get more challenging as you progress to higher numbered problems. So you see the word callous. Hopefully you know what the word callous means. If you don't, I'll tell you right now. Callous means being insensitive, which is obviously a negative word. So there's a negative connotation to the word callous. So he probably has a callous habit of dismissing the suggestions of his coworkers. So he probably just brushes them off, makes them feel inferior or stupid. So he probably made him seem, and so, he is this habit of dismissing suggestions of his coworkers. So it made him seem rude to them or mean to them. So that's one way you can go about that one. Okay, and the last one. Although most of Jorge Edwards' stories, reference to politics, are subtle, in one of his recent works, his criticism of the government is blank. You could probably say his criticism of the government is not subtle or blatant, like very obvious. And we do see the word although, so we know there's a contrast as well. Okay, so that completes the third strategy for sentence completions. Definitely you'll drop by to watch some more. All right, take care.